morning, distance learners in spectacular second grade. Today we're doing Flat Stanley, chapter 2. We have 5 vocabulary words that we're looking for, so you're going to get your vocabulary bookmark and your vocabulary sheets out with us to fill them in. Today we're going to read the chapter first, but you're going to make note of the page number. When you come to the word in your book, you can underline it or highlight it so we can go back and find the pages and do the definitions at the end. The 5 words we're looking for, everybody, are shaft, hasty, limber, wrapped but not like a present, and fragile. All right, so here we go. So remember at the end of chapter 1, poor Stanley had been flattened by his blackboard and is now only half an inch thick. So we're going to read being flat. Okay, so everybody put your finger on and follow along with me. When Stanley got used to being flat, he enjoyed it. He could go in and out of rooms, even when the door was closed, just by lying down and sliding through the crack at the bottom. Mr. and Mrs. Lambchop said it was silly, but they were quite proud of him. Here's what the picture in my book looks like. Arthur got jealous and tried to slide under the door, but he just banged his head. Being flat could also be helpful, Stanley found. He was taking a walk with Mrs. Lambchop one afternoon when her favorite ring fell from her finger. The ring rolled across the sidewalk and down between the bars of a grating that covered a deep, dark shaft. Okay, so shaft is the word. Please underline it and maybe write page 10. Mrs. Lamb, whatever pages mine is 10. Mrs. Lambchop began to cry. I have an idea, Stanley said. He took the laces out of his shoes and put an extra pair out of his pocket and tied them all together to make one long lace. When he tied one end of that to the back of his belt, and he gave the other end to his mother. And look at Stanley. He's going down the grate. Yes, Haley?
I don't see the word
Shaft. Grating the cupboard in a deep, dark shaft. Mr. and Mrs. Lambchop began to cry. We will find them again after if you can't find them, Haley. Okay, we'll go over it again at the end.
Oh, I see it.
Okay, now we're on the next page. So he's got it tied to his, he gave one end to his mom and put the other end on his belt. Lower me. We're chapter 2, Angela.
I'm on chapter 2.
Okay, so there we are. Lower me, he said, and I will look for the ring. Thank you, Stanley, said Mrs. Lambchop. She lowered him between the bars and moved him carefully up and down from side to side so that he could search the whole floor of the shaft. It's on that page again too, so underline it. 2 policemen came and stared at Mrs. Lambchop as she stood holding the long lace that ran through the grating. She pretended not to notice them. What's the matter, lady? The first policeman asked. Is your yo-yo stuck? I'm not playing with a yo-yo, said Mrs. Lambchop sharply. My son is at the other end of the lace, if you must know. Get the net, Harry, said the second. Look, the policeman. We haven't done anything. Okay, so the policeman, do you think the policeman thinks that she is being smart? Do they think she's a little bit crazy? Because she just said her son is down that grate. Look how small those grates are. They're probably thinking, there's no kids down there. Let's see what happens. The policeman said, we've caught a cuckoo. So they think she's crazy. Just then, down in the shaft, Stanley cried out, hooray! Mrs. Lambchop pulled him up and saw that he had the ring. Good for you, Stanley, she said. Then she turned angrily to the policeman. A cuckoo indeed, she said. Shame on you. The policeman apologized. We didn't get it, lady, they said. We have been hasty. We see that now. So hasty, underline it. People should think twice before making rude comments or remarks, said Mrs. Lambchop, and then not make them at all. We will go over it at the end here, just follow along. The policeman realized that it was a good rule and said they would try to remember it. So there's Stanley holding up the ring.
Mine on a different page.
Yep, that's okay. Just showing you mine. One day, Stanley got a letter from his friend Thomas Anthony Jeffrey, whose family had recently moved to California. A school vacation was about to begin, and Stanley was invited to spend it with the Jeffreys. "Oh boy," said Stanley, "I would love to go." Mrs. Lambchop sighed. A round-trip train or airplane ticket to California was very expensive, he said. "I'll have to think of a cheaper way." When Mrs. Lambchop came home from the office that evening, he brought with him an enormous brown envelope. "Now then, Stanley," he said, "try this for size." The envelope fit Stanley well. Looks like your take-home folder. Your test folder. Stanley's inside that test folder. Let's see what happens. The envelope fit Stanley very well. There was even room left over. Mrs. Lambchop discovered enough for an egg salad sandwich made with thin bread and a toothbrush case filled with milk. They had put a great many stamps on the envelope to pay for both animal and insurance, but it was still much less expensive than the train or airplane ticket to California. The next day, Mr. and Mrs. Lambchop slid Stanley into his envelope, along with the egg salad sandwich and the toothbrush case full of milk, and mailed him from the box on the corner. The envelope had to be folded to fit through the slot, but Stanley was a limber boy. Underline limber. We're on page 18. It says Stanley was a limber boy. If you did not find it, when we're done with the chapter, I'll do it. And inside the box, he straightened up again. So there they are, mailing Stanley. Mrs. Lambchop was nervous because Stanley had never been away from home alone before. She rapped on the box. That was wrapped. Underline wrapped. "Can you hear me, dear?" she called. "Are you all right?" Stanley's voice came quite clearly. "I'm fine. Can I eat my sandwich now?" "Wait an hour and try to not get overheated, dear," Mrs. Lambchop said. Then she and Mr. Lambchop cried out, "Goodbye, goodbye," and went home. Stanley had a fine time in California, and when the visit was over, the Jeffreys returned him in a beautiful white envelope they had made themselves. It had a red and blue markings to show it was airmail, and Thomas Jeffrey had lettered it "valuable" and "fragile," underline fragile, and "this end up" on both sides. Back home, Stanley told his family that he had been handled so carefully, he never felt a single bump. Mr. Lambchop said it proved that jet planes were wonderful, and so was the Postal Service, and this was a great age in which to live. Stanley thought so too. That is the end of chapter 2. Now we're going to go back.
I can't find limber.